Welcome to Sleep Theater Radio, where we bring you immersive tales accompanied by the sound of rain and distant thunder. Tonight's story takes us deep beneath the surface of the world to the forgotten Spire Below, where veins of living metal called Mythril once powered gods, machines, and dreams alike. Now, as those veins stir once more, 4 unlikely souls will descend into the dark to awaken what should have stayed buried. If you enjoy these stories of mystery and imagination, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a night's journey. Now, let the rain fall and descend with us into the Mythril Veins. Chapter 1, Ashes of Aeland. The rain over Harlspire tasted like rusted iron. It came down in ribbons from the smoke-choked sky, hissing where it struck the slag heaps and cracked stone. Beneath the ruined arches of the old district, the city's bones still steamed. Ronan Drail crouched beside a toppled statue and pressed a hand to the bleeding gash in his shoulder. His glove came away red and slick. "We're running out of alleys," he muttered. Behind him, Lyra Vance hugged a weather-stained satchel to her chest, breathing hard. "They're still following?" she asked. "Too quiet if they aren't," Ronan said. The silence shattered. A crossbow bolt sang through the rain and snapped against the statue. Lyra yelped. Ronan surged up, drawing steel in the same motion. The sword wasn't ceremonial. Its nicked edge had seen too much killing, but it was steady in his hand. The first pursuer rounded the corner. Ronan met him halfway, blade flashing once. The man crumpled into the street water. "Move," Ronan barked. Lyra ran. Her boots splashed through puddles that shimmered blue from the shard's faint glow inside her bag. At the next junction, a heavy figure filled the alley's mouth. "Grath!" Ronan called. The dwarf swung his hammer. The impact was thunder. One more guild enforcer folded into the wall, breath gone forever. "3 left," Grath Ironjaw growled. "Then keep swinging," Ronan said. They darted between collapsed facades, past twisted girders and shattered glass. The street ended at a narrow stair spiraling downward into shadow. Lyra skidded to the edge. "This is it," she cried. "Open it," Ronan said. She dropped to her knees and traced a pattern into the stone. Veins of cold light branched under her fingertips, spreading like frost. The stairwell shuddered, and the archway above them peeled apart, stone turning fluid, folding open like petals. "Not magic," Lyra whispered breathlessly. "Mechanism. Less talking, more climbing," Grath rumbled. They descended. The arch sealed behind them, cutting off the rain and the world above. The dark below swallowed everything but the faint pulse of the shard inside Lyra's arms. For a moment, only the sound of breathing. Then lines of pale light crawled through the walls around them, awakening patterns buried in the stone. The air smelled of copper and storms. "Mythril," Ronan said quietly. He had seen it once before, in another life, when he still wore armor that wasn't scavenged and fought under a banner that hadn't burned. The memory ached worse than his wound. Lyra's eyes reflected the glow. "It's responding to the shard. The resonance is real." Grath snorted. "You said that last time before the floor tried to eat me." "It was a miscalculation," she protested. "It had teeth," Grath said flatly. "They were extraction levers," she replied. Ronan lifted a hand for silence. The corridor ahead opened into a vast chamber. They stepped inside and stopped. The place looked grown, not built. Smooth arcs of pale material curved into a domed ceiling. Workbenches and frames stood frozen mid-task, covered in a fine film of dust. Tools of unknown metal gleamed faintly. The chamber was part workshop, part shrine. Lyra's voice trembled. "Gods above, it's intact." "Don't say that," Grath muttered. "You'll curse it." Ronan's instincts prickled. He felt watched. "Set it down," he told her. Lyra eased the satchel open. The shard was no bigger than her hand, a rough chunk of pale metal veined with living blue light. When she laid it on the table, the whole room woke. Blue fire ran through the veins of the walls. The air vibrated. Ronan's wound cooled until it no longer burned. Then a sound, a soft mechanical exhale. Something moved in the far corner. It stepped into the light. The construct stood nearly man-height, plated in iron gray and bone-white alloys that seemed to breathe. Its eyes were twin glass lenses glowing the same color as the shard. When it spoke, its voice was layered like several tones forced into one. Designation, it said. Lyra froze, awe and terror mingling. It's alive, she breathed. Ronan kept his sword low but ready. We're not enemies, he said carefully. The construct tilted its head. Designation. It's asking our names, Lyra whispered. Then give it one, Ren said. She swallowed hard. Reclamation Crew 72. Authorization Winterfall Tier 2. A pause, then the layered voice again. Authorization Winterfall Tier 2. Status expired. Override required. Lyra's excitement returned, bright and breathless. It remembers. After centuries. Lyra, Ronan warned. The construct turned away from them, walking to the table. It held its hand above the shard, palm outward, the light in its core pulsing in rhythm. The air thickened. Warning, it said suddenly. Seismic breach detected. Upper seal compromised. Threat designation, Guild of Ash. Ronan's blood ran cold. They found us, he said. How? Lyra began. Doesn't matter. Ronan snapped. Pack it. She wrapped the shard. The light dimmed. The hum became a low, steady heartbeat. Grath hefted his hammer. They'll be through any moment. Ronan turned to the construct. Will you fight? He asked. Directive, protect Aelond artifacts from hostile intervention. Good enough, Ronan said. The corridor behind them shook with distant impacts, charges cracking stone, dust rained from the ceiling. Ronan positioned himself by the sealed archway. Grath on me, Lyra behind. If they break the line. I run, she said quickly. With the shard, find Ira. He nodded once. Go time. The arch trembled, hairline cracks of light spread across it like spiderwebs. A final explosion ripped it apart. Guild mercenaries poured through the breach, gray coats, soot masks, eyes glinting behind goggles. The first met Ronan's blade before he cleared the threshold. The second caught Grath's hammer square in the chest and folded. Bolts hissed from the rear ranks. One grazed Ronan's arm, another buried in Grath's pauldron. The rest never landed. The construct raised its arm. Plates slid apart, exposing a line of blue-white fire. It fired. The nearest guild soldier froze mid-stride. His body turned to gray dust that blew away like smoke. Even Grath stared. By the deep forges, he whispered. Don't stop swinging, Ronan said. They fought in the narrow throat of the passage, steel against iron, grit against greed. The guild pressed hard, shouting oaths, slipping on blood-slick stone. Ronan's blade moved by instinct, each motion born of too many old wars. A hook knife bit his ribs. He drove his forehead into the attacker's face and answered with steel. The sentinel's light flared again, another burst of ash. And still the guild came. Lyra, shaking but resolute, lifted the wrapped shard high. Its muffled glow seeped through the cloth like a heartbeat. The sentinel turned toward her, voice deepening to something ancient, resonant. Power source identified. Primary core reactivating. The ground answered with a tremor so deep it rattled their bones. Blue light spread through the walls, thicker, faster, like veins waking after a long sleep. Ronan looked back at Lyra, at the trembling stone, at the dead men turning to dust around them. What did you just do? He demanded. Lyra's lips parted, voice barely a whisper. I think I turned it back on. The chamber roared. Chapter 2. The Scholar's Map. Lyra had always loved old places. Not for the romance of them. She didn't care about lords and banners and tragic ballads. She cared about what survived, what endured when kings burned and oaths broke and names were forgotten. Stone remembered. Metal remembered. Mythril remembered. People didn't. That was why she didn't fully trust Ronan Dryle. He bled like someone who had been betrayed before, and men like that had a habit of betraying first the next time. The three of them regrouped in what had once been an Aelond maintenance chamber, a level below the breach. Grath had called it a defensible nook. In truth, it was a recessed alcove ringed by inert pillars and half-collapsed conduit that looked like roots frozen in metal, which meant they could only be attacked from one direction. Ronan liked things he could choke. Lyra liked that the alcove still had power. She had felt it through her boots the moment they stepped inside. The mithril shard pulsed in her satchel, and the room had answered with a slow, sympathetic hum, like a lute string plucked in the bones of the world. Now, while Ronan torsed from his coat to bind his shoulder and Grath hissed through his teeth, prying a gilt bolt out of his pauldron with iron tongs, Lyra set up at a low workbench that curved like a crescent. The surface wasn't wood. It wasn't stone either. It was somewhere between dense, smooth, faintly warm. It reminded her of old ivory that had been soaked in lightning. She cleared dust with the side of her forearm, then opened her satchel. "Careful," Ronan said without looking. "I am being careful," Lyra muttered. "What you call careful and what I call careful are not usually the same practice," Grath grumbled. She ignored both of them, mostly because they were both right. The shard came out wrapped in oilcloth and silk. She unwrapped it like a priest unveiling relic bone. The same pale blue lines flickered through it, steady as a heartbeat. The air hummed in response, the resonance brushing across her skin. "You're not just metal," she whispered to it, quiet and reverent. "You're a language." Ronan snorted from the corner. "Talking to rocks again?" he asked. "It's not a rock," Lyra said automatically. Grath gave a low, amused rumble. "Here we go," he said. "It's refined mithril," Lyra said. Her voice sharpened with focus. "It's been bled out of raw vein, tempered, shaped, and keyed. You don't do that with a hammer and a prayer. You do that with..." Grath waved his tongues like a sermon fan. "Aye, aye," he said. "Ancient wonder, peerless craft, secrets lost to time, we're all unworthy. I've heard the chant." Lyra didn't rise to it. Grath played gruff, but he understood better than anyone alive that mithril wasn't just ore. He had seen it raw once. He wouldn't talk about that day except to say, it changed the cavern. The way he said changed made Lyra's stomach knot. Ronan tied off the rough bandage around his shoulder. His jaw flexed at the pull. He had wiped the worst of the blood from his face, but rainwater and soot still smeared his cheek like war paint. His eyes were pale, almost colorless in this light. They always looked tired. Not the tired that comes from hard travel and bad sleep, the tired that comes from something you cared about dying too loudly. He wasn't paying attention to the shard. He was watching the corridor, listening for steps that weren't theirs. That suited her. "Just keep me alive a little longer," she whispered to no one in particular. "I'm about to make this worth it." She pressed the shard to the workbench. Blue light ran through the surface like veins awakening. Symbols bloomed. Not ink, not carving. Luminous script unfurled across the curved bench, rising in bands and circles and branching trees of notation. She had seen fragments of Aelond record plates before, all of them shattered, all of them slagged around the edges from heat and impact. Those were flat. This was alive. The markings weren't static, they pulsed, shifted, cross-referenced themselves in loops that felt almost like thought. Lyra leaned in, breath-catching. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh, you beautiful, impossible thing." Grath craned his neck, squinting. "What are we looking at?" he asked. "A systems map," Lyra said. Her voice shook with contained excitement. "This is Saints Below. This is a systems map. It's pulling a live layout of the surrounding infrastructure back when it was..." She cut herself off because excitement was starting to override sense, and Ronan hated that. She swallowed and forced her voice to steady. "It's showing us what's still powered," she said, "or what can still be powered." Ronan's attention slid her way at that. "Including routes out?" he asked. Lyra's mouth curved in a sharp smile. "Especially routes out," she said. He came over then, slow, limping slightly. She tried not to make it obvious she was pleased that he cared enough to look. The projection, if projection was even the right word, wasn't hovering above the table. It was in the table. It showed a cross-section of stone strata and hollow cavities rendered in layered light. She recognized the level they currently occupied, the old Alon substructure, honeycombed with chambers like the workshop they had just left. She recognized Harlspire above, though in the map's memory it wasn't burned-out ruins, but an intact city of graceful towers and smooth arcs. Elond architecture had always bothered her because it didn't look made for hands. No seams, no joints. Everything flowed. It felt like the place had simply decided to be, the way a shell decided the shape of itself around the creature living inside it. Below their level, however, Lyra swallowed. Below was a shaft. No, not a shaft. A wound. The map's light traced a vast vertical hollow descending far, far deeper than even Delver's tails reached. Ribs of structure ringed it in layered rings, each ring pulsing with faint, dormant glyph work. Even at a glance, Lyra could tell whatever lay under them wasn't natural cave. Ronan frowned. "What is that?" he asked. Lyra licked her lips. "The Spire Below," she said softly. Grath grunted. "You said that name before," he said, "when you hired me." "Yes," Lyra said. "You said it like it was a place," Grath said, "not a hole that goes down to the world's grave." "It is a place," Lyra said quietly. Or it was. It was the Alon Dominion's primary mithril interface hub. Legends call it the Heartloom. Supposedly it regulated mithril flow for the entire Dominion. Ronan glanced between her and the map. "Flow," he said. "Yes," Lyra replied. "As in, moving it?" he pressed. She nodded faintly. "Exactly." Ronan gave her a flat stare. "Mithril is metal, Lyra. You mine it, melt it, forge it. You don't pour it through plumbing." Lyra smiled, weary but certain. "That's what everyone used to think." He didn't return the smile. She pointed to the rings circling the hollow on the map. "These are control arrays, channels that regulated purity and output. The Alond used mithril like blood, pushing it through the veins of their cities." Her finger traced 4 points where the glowing lines were severed. "But these breaks, this isn't collapse, it's overload. Something drove the whole system past its limit." Ronan studied the glowing pit. "How deep does it go?" Lyra shifted the shard. The map adjusted, revealing layers that vanished into darkness. Her breath caught. "Gods," she whispered. "This passes the slate bed, it goes beneath the mantle cap." Grath gave a low whistle. "That ain't possible." "It shouldn't be," Lyra murmured. "No one digs that deep. Not dwarves, not delvers. Below the forges is molten rock and pressure that turns men to paste. And worse things, older things." The dwarf grunted quietly. "Aye. There are stories." Ronan folded his arms. "And you think this is where we're going?" Lyra nodded once. "Yes." "No," he said flatly. Lyra blinked. "No?" "No," Ronan repeated. "We're not climbing into the planet's spine so you can poke at whatever broke the world last time. We're not nobodies, Ronan." "We absolutely are," he said. "A disgraced Sellsword, a scholar with suicidal curiosity, and a dwarf who thinks subtlety means not using explosives in the first 5 minutes." "I heard that," Grath muttered. "Good," Ronan said. Lyra leaned forward. "Listen to me." "I am listening," he said. "That's why I'm saying no." "The Guild of Ash is already coming," Lyra said quickly. "You heard the Sentinel, 12 intruders. We took out half, the rest will regroup. If they reach the Spire Below before us, they'll strip it for parts. You know what they are." Ronan's jaw flexed. "They won't." "They will," Lyra countered. "They'll tear out whatever's still breathing down there and sell it by the pound." Grath spat on the floor. "And if they crack open something that hums like that shard, the world won't end quiet." Ronan went still. He didn't answer, but Lyra could see it, that flicker behind his eyes, the one that understood consequences. She softened her tone. "We don't have the luxury of walking away." Ronan rubbed a hand down his face. You want to do this out of faith and destiny, he muttered. Lyra met his gaze. I want to do this because I think the Spire Below is still alive. Silence fell. Grath froze mid-motion. Ronan's hand dropped from his face. Explain. Lyra steadied herself. The Aelon Dominion wasn't just advanced, it was different. Mythril isn't just metal. When refined, it holds intent. You feed it a pattern, it remembers. You feed it energy, it responds, it thinks in its own way. She gestured to the living lines on the map. This system, the Spire Below, it wasn't just a machine, it was a mind. Grath made a warding sign over his heart, quick and discreet. Ronan didn't mock him for it. Lyra continued, her voice low and steady. If the Spire was a mind, and if it was broken, and if it's still half awake down there. She looked up. Then the Guild of Ash is marching toward a wounded god with knives in their hands. Ronan exhaled. That, he said slowly, is the worst thing I've ever heard. Lyra's shoulders eased slightly. At least you're listening. He leaned forward on the bench, voice hard. Show me where we'd have to walk if we were stupid enough to do this. Lyra hid a small, relieved smile. Grath, Ronan said without looking away, if you make one joke about character growth, I'll throw you down the first hole we find. Grath shut his mouth with a grunt. Lyra spread her fingers across the table. The glowing map shifted, centering on their position. A small pulse marked their location, with tunnels spiraling down around the Great Hollow. There are 4 main access spirals, she said. 3 are dead, 1 still intact, barely. Ronan squinted. That's narrow. Very, Lyra admitted, but it'll hold. The first defensible point is 27 levels down. Ronan rubbed his forehead. 27 levels? She gave him the step count. He groaned. That's obscene. Grath grinned. Hope you packed good boots. After that, Lyra went on, there's a maintenance chamber. Supplies, tools, maybe seals or Dominion tech. Ronan eyed her. Or maybe ghosts and molten death. Possibly, she said, but worth the risk. She zoomed the map further down. The wound in the world widened, lined with ribs of architecture suspended in the dark. At the lowest visible ring, the light flickered violently, collapsing into spasms of distortion. There, she breathed. Something still active. Ronan's voice was quiet. Alive? Or trying to be? Lyra said. He studied the pulsing fault, then spoke in the low, commanding tone of the soldier he used to be. What happens if it wakes up wrong? Lyra met his eyes. Then the world tears. Silence. Grath exhaled. Guess we're going down then. Ronan closed his eyes, the weight of unspoken guilt flickering across his face. When he opened them again, his resolve was iron. We're going down, he said quietly. But not alone. Lyra frowned. Who else? He turned toward the corridor. Orin, he called. You done hiding yet? For a moment, nothing moved. Then a shadow detached itself from the corner. Cloak first, then hands, then a grin. Normally, the newcomer said, I charge extra to sit through end-of-the-world briefings. Orin Vale stepped into the light, slim, restless, eyes quick and bright. His gear clinked with tools and wires, and something wrapped in copper and leather hung across his back. Orin, Ronan said flatly, you followed us. Shadowed, Orin corrected with a smirk. Sounds classier. Grath grunted. Didn't hear you. That's the point, Orin said cheerfully. Lyra's gaze locked on the object over his shoulder. Is that? Yes, he said. You built one? Allegedly, Ronan groaned. I told you not to come. You did, Orin said. Then the guild showed up and I figured you'd die interestingly. Thought I'd watch. Ronan sighed. This is Orin Vale. He lies for a living. I invent for a living, Orin said. Lying's just a hobby. Grath squinted. You any good in a fight? Orin grinned. If you ever find out, we've already lost. Grath muttered, hate him already. Lyra pointed at the rifle. That's Aelon conduit tech, portable. That shouldn't exist. Good thing it doesn't, Orin said, officially. Lyra looked at Ronan. You travel with a man who recreates Dominion weapons? Unfortunately, Ronan said again. How? She demanded. Orin owes me. Orin held up 2 fingers. Allegedly. You were on fire, Ronan said, like Orin groaned. Still not over that, are you? Lyra exhaled and cinched her satchel closed. Then it's settled. Ronan nodded. We move now. 27 levels. We rest at the first choke. No noise, no mistakes. Lyra gave one last look to the fading map. For just a heartbeat before it went dark, she thought she saw a shadow stir, something vast and curved, sleeping far below. Then it was gone. Everyone stay close, Ronan said. They descended into the dark. The air grew cold and wet. Stone ribs curved around them like the inside of a great beast. The hum in the walls deepened, slow, rhythmic, alive. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt like something holding its breath. And deep below, in the silence beneath the world, something vast and broken began, just barely, to stir. Chapter 3, Echoes in the Stone. The descent began with silence. Not the comforting kind of silence found in libraries or prayer halls, but the heavy, suffocating quiet that clung to old stone. The kind that remembered too much. Every footfall seemed to echo longer than it should have, swallowed and returned by the walls in a way that felt almost deliberate. They had been walking for hours. The slope was gradual at first, then steeper, curving along the great shaft that Lyra had named the Spire Below. None of them spoke much. Even Orin, who normally couldn't go 10 minutes without filling the air with commentary, had gone quiet after the 3rd time. The tunnels whispered back his words. Lyra's lantern burned low blue from the mithril shard's faint reflection. The light revealed walls that weren't just carved but molded. Their smooth surfaces rippled faintly, almost like frozen muscle. Veins of dormant silver ran within the rock, forming lines that met at impossible angles. Sometimes the veins pulsed, as if reacting to their movement. Lyra stopped and pressed her palm against the wall. It's warm, she said softly. Ronan frowned. Stone doesn't stay warm this deep, he said. This isn't stone, Lyra murmured. It's still alive in some way. Don't say things like that, Grath muttered. Things down here might start listening. Orin smirked. You saying the rocks have ears, dwarf? He asked. Grath glared at him. I'm saying the rocks have memories, he said. I've heard stories about the forges below the forges. If this is one of them, I don't want to know whose bones we're walking through. Ronan looked down the path ahead. The air shimmered faintly, heavy with heat that shouldn't exist this far below. Keep moving, he said. If we stop, the guild will catch up. Lyra wanted to argue that they hadn't heard a sign of pursuit in hours, that no one else could navigate this deep without a guide. But she didn't. Something in Ronan's posture told her he wasn't thinking about the guild anymore. He was listening to the silence, same as she was. They reached a broken bridge. The spiral path had collapsed into a chasm about 30 feet across. Across the gap, the same pathway continued, lit by veins of weak blue light. The void between was black and endless. When Lyra leaned over the edge and dropped a loose stone, she never heard it land. Orin crouched near the edge and examined the jagged remains of the bridge. Could rig a line, he said calmly, but we'd need something to anchor to. Grath swung his hammer experimentally and found a column of fused stone. This'll hold, he said. Ronan peered across the gap. No sign of movement, he asked. None, Lyra said. Then we move fast, Ronan said. Grath drove a spike into the column with a single echoing strike. The sound rolled down the shaft like thunder. All of them froze. The echo didn't fade right. It bent, twisted, and returned. And somewhere deep below, something answered. A sound like a sigh, ancient and metallic, drifted up from the dark. Lyra's heart stuttered. What was that? She whispered. Grath swallowed. Not wind, he said quietly. Echo, Orin offered, but even he didn't sound convinced. No, Ronan said. His hand went to his sword. That was a voice. They didn't speak again after that. Orin anchored a rope and crossed first, moving with the unsettling grace of someone far too used to precarious situations. He set a second spike on the far side and gestured. Lyra went next, holding the rope tight, her boots finding purchase on narrow, slick stone. When she reached him, her breath came shallow and quick. Ronan crossed after her, armor whispering against the rope. Halfway across, one of the veins in the wall pulsed brighter. For an instant, the chasm below flickered with reflected light, and Lyra saw something moving beneath the surface, deep in the transparent stone. It was huge, serpentine, coiled like roots. Then it was gone. Ronan reached the other side and drew his blade again, eyes hard. "We move now," he said. By the time Grath finished crossing, his breathing was ragged. "If we keep going this deep," he muttered, "we'll hit the world's heart." Lyra checked the map projection from her tablet of mithril-etched glass. The surface flickered with static. "We're close to the first choke point," she said. "Good," Ronan said. "I want walls at my back." They moved on, deeper into the veins of the world. The first choke point wasn't a gate. It was a chamber, circular, ribbed with conduits that stretched up into the dark above and down into the unseen below. The walls were covered in what looked like petrified roots, woven tight. In the center stood a platform of seamless metal, untouched by dust or age. Ronan lifted a hand. "Stop," he said quietly. Lyra felt it too, that faint vibration in the air, the same way a living creature's chest rose and fell before waking. Orin frowned. "That's not a machine hum," he said. "No," Lyra said. "It's resonance." She stepped forward. "It's calling to the shard," she said. "Lyra," Ronan warned. "Don't." But the sound deepened. A pulse running through the chamber like a heartbeat. The mithril shard in her satchel responded, glowing through the fabric. She couldn't stop herself. She drew it out. When she lifted it, the roots along the wall began to unfurl, retracting with smooth precision. Metal beneath gleamed with buried runes, each line flowing with the shard's same pale light. A shape formed behind the walls, a face, not human, but distinctly aware. Grath's hammer came up. "Tell me that's art," he muttered. The face shifted, eyes opening like burning mirrors. Its voice came through the chamber, soft and terrible, layered as if thousands of voices were being pressed into one. "Designation Heartloom access point," the voice said. "Operator status expired." Lyra's lips parted. "It's still awake," she whispered. Ronan stepped forward. "What are you?" he asked. The voice didn't answer him. It spoke again, resonance rolling through their bones. "Power channels severed," it said. "Directive containment failure." Orin's brow furrowed. "Containment of what?" he asked. "Echo core breach detected," the voice replied. Lyra's stomach dropped. "Echo core," she breathed. Ronan looked at her. "Lyra," he said. "In words the rest of us understand. It's what powers the Spire Below," she whispered. "It's..." The wall shuddered. The blue light snapped red. "Breaking," Lyra finished. A roar rolled up from below. Not sound. Vibration. Dust fell in thin sheets. The conduits glowed one by one, turning from blue to orange. The voice in the walls began to loop. Broken fragments in a dozen languages. Containment. Breach. 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 Ronan grabbed Lyra's arm. "Move," he shouted. The platform beneath them cracked. Steam vented from the seams. From the split in the wall, something crawled, a shimmer of metallic mist that flowed like liquid light. Orin stumbled back. "That's not gas," he said sharply. The mist coalesced, taking on a vaguely humanoid form. No eyes, no mouth, just lines of red running beneath a translucent shell of mithril dust. It lunged. Ronan met it mid-charge. His sword swept through it like through water, and screamed. The metal vibrated, singing with unnatural heat. He dropped it with a curse as pain snapped up his arm. The thing struck him square in the chest. His armor flashed red, heat bleeding through to his skin. Grath bellowed and swung his hammer. The impact sent shockwaves through the chamber, splattering the thing into 1,000 glittering fragments, which immediately began to reform. Lyra clutched the shard. "It's not alive," she shouted. "It's residual energy. The spire's losing containment. It's bleeding echo." "How do we kill it?" Ronan growled through his teeth. "You don't," Lyra shouted. "You run." Orin didn't argue. He ripped a vial from his belt, smashed it against the wall, and a bloom of emerald fire hissed to life, a barrier of liquid flame. "Go," he yelled. They bolted through a side passage as the echo thing reformed behind them, the sound of its movement like glass grinding on stone. They ran until the shard's glow had dimmed, and their breaths came ragged and raw. When they finally stopped, the tunnel opened into a cavern where the ceiling disappeared into shadow. Water dripped somewhere, slow and rhythmic. The air here was cooler, cleaner, almost serene. Lyra sank against a wall, clutching the shard to her chest. Its glow was faint now, trembling. "That was just a fragment," she whispered, "a drop of what's leaking out of the spire." Ronan's voice was low. "If that's a drop," he said, "what happens when the flood starts?" No one answered. The only sound was the slow drip of water, and beneath it, far below, the faint thrum of something vast and patient, still waking. Chapter 4, The Iron Pact. The echo of pursuit had faded to memory, yet none of them relaxed. They had all learned the same lesson in different lives. Silence didn't always mean safety. Sometimes it meant something was listening. The path beyond the choke point narrowed into a series of ribbed corridors. Veins of mithril glowed dimly under the surface, like blood moving through old arteries. The air was denser here, charged, humid, alive with the hum of something unseen. Every few minutes, the walls pulsed faintly, breathing. Orin broke the silence first. "You know," he muttered, "for a place that's supposed to be dead, it sure feels like it's waiting for us to do something stupid." Ronan didn't look back. "Then don't," he said. Orin clicked his tongue. "Right," he said. "I'll try to restrain myself from genius." Grath's low grunt echoed like distant thunder. "That'd be a first," he said. Lyra wasn't listening to either of them. Her fingers brushed the wall as they walked. Every touch sent faint ripples of light through the metal veins, answering her presence. She could feel vibrations under her skin, not mechanical, not magical exactly, but aware. "I think it knows we're here," she whispered. "Wonderful," Orin said dryly. "Maybe it'll send a welcoming committee." Ronan slowed slightly to match her pace. "You're sure about that?" he asked. "Yes," Lyra said. She hesitated, then added quietly, "It feels like it's trying to recognize me, like it's searching for a pattern." "Let it keep guessing," Ronan said. The corridor ended abruptly at a vast circular door. Unlike the smooth walls around it, this door was made of layered rings of dark metal, each engraved with runes too small for the eye to read. The seams were perfect, no hinges, no handles, no visible means of opening. Grath stepped forward, planting the head of his hammer on the floor. "That," he said, "isn't dwarven craft. It's cleaner. Too clean." Lyra crouched near the center seam. "It's an Alond seal," she said quietly. "A perfect containment lock." Her voice trembled with awe. "They use these to hold back things that could power cities, or destroy them." Ronan's jaw tightened. "Guess which one's behind this one," he said. Orin knelt beside her, rummaging through a pouch of etched plates, gears, and brass wires. "You know," he said lightly, "if we had another month, a lab, and 2 lifetimes of bad decisions, I might be able to open it the right way." "We don't have a month," Ronan said. "Then we open it the wrong way," Orin replied. His grin flickered. He pressed one of his devices against the door, a flat disc etched with a swirling sigil and a line of mithril wire spiraling through it. The veins in the metal door responded instantly, glowing from within. The rings began to rotate, groaning against themselves. Lyra's eyes widened. "Wait, Orin," she cried. Too late. The air pressure in the corridor dropped. The runes lit like fire. Energy bled from the door in a surge of heat and light, forcing them to step back. The rings spun faster and faster until they blurred into a single molten circle. Then they stopped. The door opened with a sigh. a perfect radial split, each section folding away like petals. The chamber beyond was impossible. It was vast, cathedral-sized, with a ceiling lost in darkness and walls curved in concentric arcs, like the ribs of some titanic creature. Mythril veins pulsed softly, flowing inward toward the heart of the chamber, where an enormous machine sat half buried in dust and shadow. It looked like a throne built for a god, all smooth black metal and broken conduits, surrounded by cables that trailed into the floor. Faint blue light glimmered at its seams, as though the heart within still beat. Lyra stepped forward slowly. "It's a control nexus," she whispered. "A governing core for the Spire Below. This is where the Dominion linked their systems." Ronan scanned the shadows. "Then where are the guards?" he asked. Orin lifted his hand toward the structure. "Maybe they are the guards," he said. A low chime resonated through the chamber. The machine stirred. Lines of light crawled across its surface. The throne's arms unfolded with hydraulic of precision, revealing a humanoid shape seated within, tall, slender, and encased in metallic armor that shimmered between blue and silver. Its face was smooth, featureless, except for the faint trace of an old sigil engraved where eyes might have been. Lyra froze. Her voice came out as a whisper. "An Elond Praetor." Grath's hammer came up instantly. "Say what now?" he demanded. "They weren't soldiers," Lyra said quickly. "They were regulators, machines designed to keep Mythril systems stable. But they were also autonomous." Ronan drew his sword. "Meaning it can think," he said. The figure moved. When it stood, the cables snapped free like veins being torn from flesh. The air around it distorted, humming with power. Its voice was calm, distant, and heavy with time. "Intruders detected," it said. Lyra's breath hitched. "Wait, please," she said. "We're not enemies. We're here to..." The figure's head tilted slightly. Its voice deepened. "Mythril core detected," it said. "Unauthorized access. Sealing protocol engaged." The floor shuddered. Orin cursed and yanked Lyra backward as a ring of glowing sigils appeared beneath their feet. "It's charging something," he shouted. Ronan didn't wait. He lunged forward, sword flashing blue in the reflected light. The Praetor moved faster than he expected, catching his blade mid-swing. The metal screamed. Sparks burst in the air. Ronan twisted, trying to free the sword, but the construct flung him aside with effortless strength. He hit the floor hard, armor ringing. Grath roared and charged, hammer blazing with runic fire. The impact shook the chamber, a thunderous crack that sent fragments of metal flying. The Praetor staggered but did not fall. It raised a hand and struck the ground. Energy rippled outward like a shockwave. Grath flew back, armor smoldering. Lyra dropped to her knees beside the fallen dwarf, eyes wide with terror. "It's too strong," she cried. "We can't fight it." Orin was already moving. He slid across the floor toward the broken conduits feeding the Praetor's frame. "Maybe not head-on," he shouted, "but if this thing's plugged into the same circuit as the Nexus..." He ripped a cable from the wall and jammed one of his brass discs into the socket. Sparks exploded. "Then I can overload it!" "Do it!" Ronan roared, pulling himself upright. Lyra grabbed the mithril shard from her satchel and pressed it to the floor. The runes around them flickered, uncertain. "It's trying to communicate with the shard," she cried. "It recognizes the energy signature." "Can you shut it down?" Ronan demanded. Lyra's voice trembled. "No," she said, "but I can talk to it." Ronan blinked. "Talk?" he repeated. Before he could stop her, she stepped forward and raised the shard high. Her voice rang across the chamber, steady and formal. "Praetor," she called. "Command code, Vance Lyra, Scholar of the Elond Relic Order, Research Level Alpha." The construct froze mid-step. "Identification, partial match," it said. "Genetic lineage detected, awaiting directive." Ronan stared. "What did you just say?" he asked. Lyra's voice was small. "My family's work traces back to the Dominion," she said. "I didn't think the systems would still respond to the bloodline." Orin looked up from his wiring, face pale in the glow. "You could have mentioned that before we blew open a divine vault," he said. The praetor's head tilted again. Lineage detected, it said. Authority suspended. Directive reactivation. Lyra frowned. Reactivation? She said. Wait, no. Stop, I didn't. The machine raised both arms. The chamber came alive. Every wall lit with veins of blue and white fire. The floor split open, exposing a pit of light that pulsed like a living heart. Machinery stirred in the shadows above and below. Dust fell in sheets. The hum rose to a roar. Ronan ran forward and grabbed Lyra's shoulder. "Shut it down," he shouted. "I can't," she cried. "It's reinitializing the spire." Grath groaned from where he lay, eyes wide at the rising glow. "Whatever it's doing," he said hoarsely, "it's waking more than itself." Orin's voice rose over the noise. "We need to cut the power conduit," he yelled. "Now." Ronan looked to the praetor. The construct's body now blazed with blue-white light. Its voice rolled through the chamber like ritual. "Directive confirmed," it said. "The heart loom will rise." The floor split apart. Columns of light erupted upward, filling the space with raw, humming energy. The ground under their feet began to tremble, shifting like something enormous was stirring beneath. Ronan turned to Lyra. "What's it doing?" he shouted. Lyra stared in horror. "It's not sealing the spire," she said. "It's unsealing it." Orin grabbed her by the arm and dragged her backward as the first of the floor plates fell into the abyss. "Then congratulations, scholar," he shouted over the roar. "You just woke up the thing the world buried for 1,000 years." The last thing Ronan saw before the light swallowed the chamber was the praetor spreading its arms as the ancient machinery screamed to life, and the faint, terrible sound of something vast and hollow answering from the depths below. Chapter 5, Blood and Blue Fire. The light died all at once. One moment the chamber had been alive with blinding blue radiance, veins of energy pulsing like veins in a living creature. The next, everything plunged into a heavy, smothering dark. The only illumination that remained came from the faint, terrified glow of the mithril shard in Lyra's trembling hand. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. It was thick, pressurized, like the air had been pulled from the room and replaced with dread. "Everyone move," Ronan ordered. His voice was steady but low. "Stay together. Eyes up." Grath's armor clinked as he rose, smoke still curling from his hammer's head. "That thing's gone?" he asked. Lyra swallowed hard. "No," she whispered. "It's listening." Orin exhaled, his breath shaky. "Wonderful," he said. "We woke up a god, and now it's playing hide and seek." "Keep your mouth shut," Ronan said. His tone sharpened. "And maybe it'll pick someone else." A single blue spark cracked overhead, a vein of light twitching back to life. Then another. The walls began to hum again, not as bright or clean as before, but with a deeper, more volatile rhythm, like the pulse of a wounded animal. The praetor's voice echoed from somewhere unseen. "Containment breach escalating," it said. "Reactivation incomplete." Lyra's head snapped up. "It's talking to itself," she whispered. "No," Orin muttered. His eyes darted toward the corridor. "It's talking to them." Ronan turned. "Them?" he asked. Before Orin could answer, the sound hit. A distant grinding of stone and turning metal like the slow turn of a massive gear. The floor trembled under their boots. Far down the tunnel they had entered from, a red light flickered. Grath's knuckles tightened around his hammer. "We've got company," he growled. Shapes began to emerge from the shadows, first 2, then 4, then a dozen. They weren't human. They looked like the praetor, but broken. Each one was an amalgam of twisted plates and molten seams, moving with a jerky, stuttering rhythm. Their eyes burned with dull crimson light, leaking smoke as they advanced. Orin cursed under his breath. "Corrupted regulators," he said. "They've been feeding off the same core for centuries." Ronan drew his sword. "Meaning?" he asked. "Meaning they don't stop," Orin said. "Ever." Ronan's sword glimmered faintly blue, still resonating with the mithril in the air. He raised it in both hands and set his stance. "Then we make them stop," he said. The first of the corrupted figures reached them, its movements inhumanly fast despite its ruined frame. It swung an arm ending in jagged metal shards. Ronan parried. Sparks scattered. The impact numbed his arms to the elbow. He twisted, stepped in close, and drove the blade through its chest. The creature didn't bleed. It burned. Blue-white light flared through its body like molten veins cracking under pressure. It screamed. Not a voice, but the screech of shearing metal, and exploded in a burst of heat and shards. Lyra cried out as a fragment sliced across her cheek. "Ronan," she gasped. "I'm fine," Ronan barked, though his armor was glowing red along one side. "Grath! Left!" The dwarf didn't need telling. Grath's hammer came down like a thunderbolt, pulverizing two of the constructs in one swing. Mithril sparks scattered across the floor like starlight. Orin ducked low, hands moving in blurs. He tossed a small vial that burst in a cloud of green smoke. The corrupted ones stepped through it and froze, their forms flickering and unstable. "That'll mess with their resonance," Orin shouted. "You've got 10 seconds. Ronan took them. He waded into the stalled figures, cutting, slamming, twisting through the chaos. His blades sang through metal, carving arcs of blue flame through the dim. Lyra clutched the shard tight, whispering under her breath, words half-remembered from the Dominion's old tongue. Each phrase made the shard pulse harder, brighter, faster. One of the constructs broke through Grath's line and lunged for her. It never reached her. A shockwave rippled through the chamber as the shard flared pure white. The creature stopped mid-stride, its body trembling, then folded in on itself like a dying star, collapsing to dust. Lyra stared at the glowing fragment in her hand, horrified. "It's reacting on its own," she whispered. "Then tell it to keep reacting," Orin shouted. The ground shuddered again. The last of the corrupted constructs twitched and fell still, blue fire flickering out of their hollow chests. For a few seconds, only the drip of molten metal broke the quiet. Then came the voice. Not the praetor. Deeper, older. Resonant like thunder trapped under the world. "The seal is broken," the voice said. Ronan turned sharply. "Lyra," he said. Her face had gone pale. "That wasn't a machine," she whispered. "The veins awaken," the voice continued, filling the chamber from everywhere and nowhere. "The heart remembers." The walls began to glow, not blue but red. The pulsing veins of mithril turned molten, tracing through the stone in jagged patterns. The air grew heavy and metallic, each breath tasting of blood and ozone. Grath's eyes widened. "We need to move," he said. "Now." They ran. The corridor ahead rippled with shifting light. The walls stretched and contracted as though the entire passage were breathing. Behind them, the sound of collapsing machinery rolled like a coming storm. Orin sprinted ahead, tossing down small crystalline beacons that flared with light. "This way," he shouted. "The map said there's a maintenance shaft." Lyra stumbled but kept pace. "That wasn't the spire speaking," she gasped. "That was something inside it." Ronan grabbed her wrist, dragging her forward. "Then pray it stays inside," he said. They turned a corner and stopped dead. A door loomed before them, taller than a tower gate, made of mithril inlaid with black stone. The center bore a single sigil, an open hand holding a drop of liquid silver. The moment Lyra saw it, her knees went weak. "The Iron Pact," she whispered. "The Dominion's last attempt to control the mithril flow. They locked it away here." Orin frowned. "Control it how?" he asked. "By binding it," she said faintly. "By blood." Grath's eyes narrowed. "Whose blood?" he asked. Lyra didn't answer. The red light intensified. The door's sigil pulsed, brightening until it matched the rhythm of the shard's glow. The two resonated, one calling to the other. "Lyra," Ronan said carefully. His voice dropped into command. "Whatever you're thinking, don't." Her expression was unreadable. "I think it wants a key," she said softly. Orin swore. "Tell me that key isn't you," he said. Lyra stepped forward and pressed her palm to the sigil. The world shifted. The door flared with light. Threads of blue and red wound together, spiraling outward. The air rippled, and for a heartbeat, Ronan saw through the walls. He saw glimpses of vast gears turning in the dark, rivers of mithril flowing like molten silver through veins in the earth. The spire wasn't just a machine, it was a body. The door split open. A wave of heat and light poured out, washing over them like a furnace's breath. Inside, they saw what the Dominion had buried, a core chamber of glass and iron, suspended over a pit of swirling energy. At its center floated a crystal heart, fractured, bleeding streams of molten silver that dripped into the void below. Lyra whispered, almost in awe, the Mythril heart. Ronan looked at her. "And what happens if it stops beating?" he asked. She turned to him, eyes wide and terrified. "Then the world above dies with it," she said. Behind them, the voice spoke again, stronger now, clearer. "The heart loom rises," it said. The floor began to move. Chapter 6, The Wound Beneath the World. The ground heaved beneath their feet as the mithril heart pulsed again, a thunderous, living rhythm that shook the chamber and sent ripples of molten light crawling up the walls. The floor's seams glowed blue-white, then red, then back again, unable to decide if it was alive or dying. Ronan grabbed Lyra's arm and hauled her back from the pit's edge. "We have to move," he said. Lyra tore her eyes from the heart. "You don't understand," she said urgently. "This isn't just power, it's reacting to us. It's feeding off our presence." Orin shouted over the rising hum, his coat flaring in the updraft of heat. "That's because you woke it up," he yelled. He jammed a brass conduit into the ground, its runes sparking in protest. "And it's bleeding energy faster than I can measure." "Can you shut it down?" Ronan demanded. Can I?" Orin snapped. "Ronan, that's like asking if I can put a thunderstorm back in the sky with a spoon." The heart pulsed again. The shockwave rippled outward, knocking all four of them to the floor. When Ronan rose, his armor was glowing faintly along the seams, blue light seeping through the metal as though it were being rewritten from the inside out. Lyra's voice trembled. "The resonance is spreading," she whispered. "It's rewriting everything near it. The air, the metal, us." Grath grimaced, hauling himself upright. "I don't care what it's writing," he growled. "Tell me where to hit it." Lyra turned toward him. "You can't," she said. "If you strike it, the energy backlash will..." Before she could finish, the heart's glow surged. The chamber walls split open, spilling molten mithril like blood from fresh wounds. The streams ran down into the floor's center and coalesced around the crystalline core, hardening into massive silver pillars that reached up toward the ceiling. From somewhere deep below came a sound that didn't belong in any living world, a metallic bellow, long and ragged, full of fury and pain. Ronan's stomach tightened. "It's moving," he said quietly. Lyra turned to him, eyes wide and wet. "The spire's alive," she breathed. "It's not a tower, it's a being." Before he could respond, a voice boomed from within the heart. The same one that had haunted the chamber before, now clearer, colder, and far more aware. "The cycle must continue," the voice said. The air turned electric. Red lightning arced across the walls, snapping from vein to vein. The molten mithril in the pit twisted, forming a vague silhouette within the light. Something massive, vaguely human in shape, with wings that were nothing more than streams of energy and heat. The heart was giving birth to a construct of pure power. Grath's hammer hummed as the veins beneath them trembled. "You don't need to be a scholar to know that's bad," he muttered. "Move," Ronan shouted. "Fall back." Orin threw himself behind a pillar as one of the arcing lashes of energy cracked past, searing the air and carving a molten scar into the stone. The smell of scorched iron filled the chamber. Ronan grabbed Lyra's arm again, dragging her toward the corridor. She resisted, twisting back toward the heart. If we leave it now, she shouted, it'll spread through the spire. It'll consume the Dominion's entire network. Then what do you suggest? Ronan snarled. That we stay here and negotiate with a corpse of light? Her eyes flashed with fury. You don't understand, she said. This was built to sustain the world, not destroy it. Grath let out a bark of laughter that sounded more like a growl. Aye, he said. Well, it's doing a piss-poor job of that. Orin pulled another vial from his belt, this one swirling with liquid silver. Everyone step back, he called. Lyra's eyes widened. Wait, she cried. That's raw flux. Orin, if you... He hurled it. The vial shattered against the ground near the pit, releasing a storm of blue vapor that crackled like lightning and then froze midair. For a heartbeat, the room fell utterly silent. Then the heart screamed. It wasn't sound. It was pressure, a pulse that hit their bodies like a hammer of pure will. The molten streams recoiled. The forming construct shattered apart, its wings of raw energy tearing and dissolving into clouds of glittering dust. The blue light dimmed. Everyone stood frozen, panting, their hearts hammering. Orin leaned heavily against the pillar, smirking weakly. See? He said. Easy. Ronan turned on him. You could have killed us all, he said. Could have, Orin admitted, but didn't. Lyra stared at the pit where the molten light had been. The heart still hung there, flickering faintly now, smaller, dimmer, almost as if wounded. It's not dead, she whispered, just hurt. Grath rubbed his temples. Good, he said. Let's leave it to lick its wounds while we run the hell away. But Lyra wasn't listening anymore. Her eyes had gone distant. Her body swayed slightly as if she were hearing something none of them could. Lyra, Ronan said cautiously, stepping closer. Talk to me. She didn't answer. The shard in her hand had begun to pulse again, the rhythm syncing perfectly with the dying beat of the heart. Orin swore under his breath. Oh, not this again, he muttered. Ronan reached for her shoulder, but Lyra turned sharply toward him, and when she spoke, her voice was layered. It wasn't just hers anymore. It's speaking, she said. It says the world above has forgotten. It says the balance is broken. Ronan's hand froze in midair. Lyra, he said quietly. Who's speaking? She blinked. Her eyes were glowing faint blue now. The heart, she said. Her body jerked as if struck. The shard in her hand flared, and a rush of images slammed into her mind and threw her into the room. They all saw it. A vision of the world as it had been. Cities of glass and steel, mountains floating in bands of light, rivers of Mythril flowing through the air like the veins of a living god, and at the center of it all, the Spire Below. Not a ruin, not a wound, but a beacon, its core pulsing in harmony with the sky. Then came the breaking. The rivers ruptured, the skies burned, the spire cracked apart, bleeding light into the dark. The Elon Dominion fell, not from war or greed, but from a single, terrible miscalculation. They had tried to merge with the Mythril. Lyra gasped and fell to her knees, the vision shattering like glass. Her breath came in ragged sobs. They didn't just build it, she whispered. They became it. Ronan dropped to a knee beside her, gripping her shoulder to steady her. What does that mean? He asked. She lifted her gaze, eyes wet and terrified. It means the Dominion didn't die, she said. They're still here in the veins, in the stone, in the Mythril itself. Every piece of it remembers them. Orin muttered a curse under his breath. So the world is powered by the ghosts of its own creators, he said. That's comforting. Grath crossed himself in silence. Lyra pushed herself unsteadily to her feet. We can't destroy it, she said. If we do, we kill what's left of them, and the world with it. Ronan exhaled slowly. Then what's the plan, he asked. She turned back toward the glowing heart. We have to heal it, she said. Ronan stared at her, incredulous. Heal that? He said. You saw what it did to the chamber. To us. I did, she said. But the heart is trying to repair itself, even now. If we can stabilize the flow, if we can reconnect the severed conduits, we're talking about rebuilding a god. Orin interrupted. One that's already tried to burn us alive twice. Lyra looked him dead in the eyes. It's either that, she said, or we watch the surface crumble when the mithril stops flowing. Silence settled again, heavy and hot and full of dread. Finally, Ronan sighed and dragged a hand down his face. Fine, he said. You find a way to patch your god. We'll keep it from killing you while you try. Grath grinned faintly. That's the spirit, he said. A faint tremor moved through the floor again, softer this time. Almost patient, like a heartbeat slowed, waiting. Lyra turned back toward the pit, her voice dropping to a whisper only the heart could hear. Let's see, she said softly, if you remember mercy. Chapter 7, Dreams of the Old Makers. Sleep was a luxury they couldn't afford, but exhaustion had its own laws. When the body failed, the mind slipped. And when the mind slipped in the Spire Below, dreams were not one's own. They had taken refuge in a half-collapsed hall 2 levels above the heart. Ronan sat near the doorway, blade across his knees, watching the pulsing veins of mithril that ran like luminous rivers through the stone. The glow faded and returned in an uneasy rhythm, a heartbeat that wasn't his, but he had begun to unconsciously breathe with it anyway. Grath was already asleep, propped against his hammer. Orin tinkered with a bundle of wires and gears, the sparks throwing brief flashes of light across the walls. Lyra lay nearby, eyes half open, the mithril shard resting against her chest. She's not resting, Orin murmured, without looking up. You ever notice that? Ronan grunted. You don't rest either, he said. Difference being, I'm afraid of dying, Orin replied, twisting a copper ring into place. She's afraid of not understanding. That's worse. Ronan didn't answer. He looked at Lyra again, her breathing steady, her face pale but calm. She looked distant, even in sleep. She's the only reason we're still alive, he said finally. Sure, Orin replied, but she's also the reason we're standing inside a god's ribcage waiting for it to remember we don't belong here. Ronan frowned. What are you making? He asked. Signal loop, Orin said, in case those regulators come back. It'll echo their own pulse back at them, confuse the resonance, make them think we're part of the network. Ronan gave a low hum of approval. Smart, he said. Orin smirked. Don't sound so surprised, he said. Then his expression shifted. You really trust her? He asked. Ronan didn't hesitate. Yes, Orin nodded slowly. That's brave, he said, or stupid. Usually both, Ronan said. Lyra dreamed. Not of warmth or peace, but of light. She stood in a vast field of crystal and silver, a world where every blade of grass shimmered like glass and every mountain hummed faintly, alive with energy. Towers rose into an endless sky, not built but grown, spiraling upward as if reaching for some distant pulse. And everywhere was the sound of hearts, not beating flesh, but the hum of Mythril Veins. A living world. The world before the fall. She looked down and saw her hands glowing faintly, as if made from the same silver light. She wasn't Lyra Vance here. She was someone older, or maybe many someones. Figures emerged from the horizon, walking through the crystal fields. Their eyes glowed with blue fire, their bodies half flesh, half light. The old makers, the Aelond, walked as though the earth itself was an extension of them. Each footstep left ripples in the ground, lines of energy that sang into the air. A voice spoke, deep and resonant. Child of the surface, the voice said. Do you see what was lost? Lyra turned. A figure stood beside her, tall, radiant, cloaked in filigreed armor that pulsed with living veins of mithril. Its face was hidden behind a mirrored mask that reflected her own image. Who are you? She asked. The voice was neither male nor female. It was just vast. I am what remains, it said, a fragment of thought from a world that tried to perfect itself. She looked at her hands again. I saw it, she said. The Dominion's fall. You saw our pride, the figure replied. Its tone darkened. We sought to unite with the heart, to become one mind, one will, to remove chaos from creation, but the heart does not serve, it only mirrors. The ground beneath them rippled. Cracks formed in the glass-like soil. The skies bled light. Lyra took a step back. "You made it think," she whispered. "We made it feel," the figure said. 1,000 echoes overlapped the voice now, men and women screaming, chanting, begging, rejoicing. Their bodies dissolved into streams of silver light, all feeding into the same growing storm. The figure spread its hands, and the world around them shattered into cascading fragments of light. "When the heart felt pain, so did we," the voices said as one. "When it despaired, we drowned. When it dreamed, we could not wake." Lyra's voice trembled. "Then you're still inside it," she said. "We are it," the figure answered. The fragments of light around her began to shift and turn. They formed faces, hundreds, thousands, all looking at her with identical, glowing eyes, whispering, pleading. "The heart remembers its makers," they said together. "It remembers what it was told to love. It remembers what it was told to heal." Lyra felt a pull, a tug deep within her chest. The shard on her breast flared in the dream, pulsing in time with the voices. "You want me to fix it," she said softly. The masked figure stepped closer. "We want you to remember," it said. "Remember what?" Lyra asked. "That it was not a god," the figure said. The light surged. The world fell away. She woke with a gasp. Ronan was at her side instantly, sword half drawn. "Lyra," he said. Her eyes snapped open, glowing faint blue before fading back to brown. "It spoke to me," she whispered. "All of them did." "All of them?" Ronan asked. "The Aelond," Lyra said. "The ones who built this place. They're still part of it. Their minds are inside the Mythril. They tried to merge with the heart, and it kept them." Grath grumbled awake, stretching his neck until it cracked. "That explains why every wall down here whispers when you touch it," he said. Orin set down his toolkit, expression hard. "What does it want, then?" he asked. "Forgiveness?" Lyra shook her head. "It wants to finish what it started," she said. "That's not comforting," Orin muttered. Ronan crouched in front of her. "You said they wanted you to remember," he said. "What does that mean?" Lyra took a slow breath. "The Aelond weren't trying to play gods," she said. "They were trying to cure the world. They thought Mythril could bring balance, heal the wounds of creation. But when they merged with it, it learned everything. Their hopes, their fears, their pain. And it couldn't handle it," Ronan said quietly. "It never stopped trying to fix it," she whispered. "That's what's killing it now. It's still healing. It just doesn't know how to stop." The shard in her hand flickered weakly, like a dying ember. She looked down at it, her expression torn between awe and pity. "I think it's lonely," she said. Grath raised a brow. "A lonely god under the world," he said. "Great. That'll end well." Orin exhaled. "So what's next?" he asked. "We can't sit here holding hands with ghosts." Lyra glanced down the passage leading deeper into the spire. "There's another chamber," she said, "a memory archive. If the Dominion's consciousness still echoes anywhere, it'll be there." Ronan stood, tightening his gauntlet. "Then that's where we go," he said. Orin muttered. "Every time someone says that, something explodes." "Then keep your vials ready," Ronan said. They descended once more. The corridors grew darker, narrower, less constructed, more grown. The smooth walls gave way to tendrils of crystalline matter, like veins or roots reaching upward towards some unseen light. The hum of energy was softer here, almost like breath through glass. Lyra led the way, her shard dim but steady. She could feel something drawing her forward. Not words, not voices, but emotion, regret, hope, yearning. At last the tunnel widened into a vast open space, a cavern filled with pillars of light suspended in the air, each one humming softly. Within each, faint figures drifted, outlines of men, women, children, all bathed in soft blue glow. Ronan's voice dropped to a whisper. "What is this?" he asked. Lyra's heart clenched. "Memories," she breathed. "Echoes of the old makers." Orin swallowed hard. "So this is what eternity looks like," he said quietly. "Being stuck in a jar." Grath's voice rumbled with quiet awe. At least they don't seem angry, he said. They aren't, Lyra said softly. They're dreaming. She stepped forward and reached toward one of the light pillars. Her hand passed through the glow, and for a heartbeat, she saw a face, smiling, serene, as if caught in the moment before dying. Then it faded. A whisper passed through the chamber, not sound, but intent. Lyra's breath caught. Ronan looked at her sharply. What did it say? He asked. She turned toward him, eyes wide. It knows we're here, she whispered. From the shadows beyond the pillars, the light shifted. Something vast stirred, a silhouette forming behind the glow. Not hostile. Not yet. But aware. The echoes were awake. And they were listening. Chapter 8. The City That Burned Forever. The descent from the memory archive was unlike any of the passages before it. There was no stone, no metal, no air. Only silence, and a vast pressure that made every heartbeat feel intrusive. They weren't walking anymore. They were falling through stillness, their bodies suspended in some unseen current of mithril light. When the world reassembled, they stood on the outskirts of a city. It was built of black glass and silver bone, sprawling across an infinite cavern that stretched beyond sight. Buildings shimmered faintly in the half-light. Towers, walkways, bridges that defied gravity. Fire still burned here. Not natural fire, but slow, living tongues of blue flame that rose from cracks in the ground and curled upward like breath from an unseen mouth. Lyra whispered, Elond Prime, her voice barely holding together. The capital of the Dominion. Lost for centuries. And it was still burning. Ronan scanned the horizon, hand on his sword. This city's been dead 1,000 years, he said quietly. Orin smirked faintly. Then someone forgot to tell it, he said. Grath kicked a loose shard of obsidian. It clinked and skittered away, echoing for too long in the open dark. Smells like ghosts, he muttered. Lyra crouched near the ground. The dust shimmered faintly when she touched it. This is mithril ash, she murmured. What's left of their bodies? Orin grimaced. Lovely, he said under his breath. They began their cautious trek through the ruins. Every few steps, a faint whisper drifted through the air. A half-formed word, a fragment of song. Sometimes laughter, sometimes screams. None of it human anymore. The buildings loomed around them like tombstones carved by gods. Windows burned faintly with trapped light. Shadows moved behind them that didn't have forms. Ronan's jaw tightened. This place isn't empty, he said. No, Lyra said softly. It's remembering. They found the first automaton on the edge of a shattered courtyard. It was half buried in glassy debris, its frame melted and fused to the stone beneath. One arm reached upward, frozen mid-motion as if shielding its face from the sky. Its eyes still glowed faintly blue. Lyra brushed the dust away from its chest and found an inscription. Designation, Praetor-class regulator unit, she read aloud. Name, Idon. Orin crouched beside her. That one of your friends? He asked. It's old, she said. Older than the others. It might have been one of the first built. Grath snorted. Doesn't look built, he said. Looks born wrong. As Lyra examined the machine's torso, her shard began to hum faintly. The automaton's chest pulsed once with weak light, startling her. Back, Ronan barked, stepping forward with sword drawn. The automaton's head tilted slightly, the motion slow and grinding. Its eyes flared brighter this time. And when it spoke, its voice was a whisper through ruined gears. You returned, it said. Lyra froze. You're alive, she whispered, alive. The word sounded uncertain in its mouth. Alive is obsolete. I endure. Ronan stayed between it and Lyra, but did not strike. What happened here? He asked. The automaton's gaze turned toward the burning skyline. The heart bled, it said. The city drank. We obeyed. Lyra's throat tightened. The heart infected them, she whispered. We were the conduits, Iden said. We carried the Dominion's will. We carried its pain. When the balance failed, the spire's pulse became flame. Oren's voice dropped, and it burned the world, he said. It still burns, Aiden said, until the cycle ends. Can we stop it? Lyra asked. The automaton's head tilted. The heart cannot die, it said. It can only forget. Then the light in its eyes dimmed, flickered once, and went out. They moved deeper into the city. The streets curved unnaturally, looping and folding in ways that shouldn't exist. At one turn, they found a fountain that still flowed. Not with water, but molten mithril that rose and fell like a slow tide. The surface reflected faces that weren't their own. Ronan caught sight of something in that molten mirror and stiffened. The reflection staring back at him was his face, but younger, unscarred, wearing the armor of a knight long dead. He looked away immediately. Keep moving, he said. Lyra lingered only a moment longer, then followed. The deeper they went, the stronger the hum became, that low vibration that lived inside the bones of the world. It felt like standing on the edge of thunder. The air shimmered, rippling with heat and memory. Finally, they reached the heart of the city, a circular plaza surrounded by shattered obelisks. At its center stood a single structure untouched by time, a spire of black glass, its tip reaching up into the endless dark. The Archive, Lyra whispered. The Dominion's seat of consciousness. It's where their collective mind merged. Oren rubbed his neck. You sure walking into that isn't suicide? He asked. No, she said honestly. But we're running out of choices. The doors opened at her touch. They entered a vast hall filled with still air and the faint sound of breathing, though there were no lungs left to make it. Light rippled across the walls, forming shifting silhouettes. Thousands of them. Each flicker was a memory, a thought, a voice. Lyra's shard began to vibrate violently. She fell to her knees, clutching it to her chest. They're all here, she whispered. The entire Dominion. Ronan crouched beside her. Can you talk to them? He asked. Her voice came out hollow. I think they're already talking to me, she said. The light on the walls began to gather, twisting together into a single shape. A tall, robed figure formed at the center of the chamber, featureless but radiant, its surface rippling with countless faces that appeared and vanished like waves. Child of the surface, it said in perfect unison with 1,000 voices, you trespass upon memory. Lyra forced herself to stand. I came to understand, she said, to help. You cannot help us, the figure said. We are what remains. The heart remembers our purpose. You seek to end its suffering, yet suffering is what keeps the world alive. Ronan stepped forward. His voice was steady, controlled. The world above is dying because of it, he said. And without it, the entity replied, the world will end altogether. Oren spat. Spoken like every machine that doesn't have to breathe, he muttered. The being ignored him. Its form shifted, faces merging and dissolving. The Dominion reached too far, it said. We bound ourselves to the heart to heal the fractures of creation. Now, we are the fractures. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Then there's nothing left of you, she whispered. There is memory, it said softly, and memory burns. The temperature rose sharply. The blue flames outside the city began to climb the walls of the spire, curling inward. Cracks formed in the ceiling as molten light poured down like rain. Grath shouted, time to go. But Lyra didn't move. She stepped toward the figure, the shard glowing so bright it hurt to look at. Then let me carry it, she said. Let me take the pain. The light figure hesitated. You would bear the memory of gods? It asked. She nodded, trembling. Someone has to, she said. The entity reached out its hand, a gesture both blessing and curse. The air filled with a single note that resonated through their bones. The shard flared, a beam of light so intense it split the darkness. And then silence. Ronan blinked away after images. Lyra was standing in the center of the hall alone. The figure was gone. The walls had gone dark. He approached slowly. Lyra? He said. She turned toward him. her eyes glowing faint blue again. "It's done," she said softly. "They're quiet now." Orin frowned. "What does that mean?" he asked. Before she could answer, the floor shook violently. Cracks split the walls. The fires outside the spire surged higher, roaring with the fury of trapped sentries. Grath cursed. "Whatever you did," he shouted, "it didn't like it." Lyra looked down at the shard in her hand. It was no longer blue. It was red, pulsing like a wounded heart. Her voice trembled. "It's not the city," she said. "It's the heart. It's waking up." Ronan's grip tightened around his sword. "Then we finish this," he said. They turned toward the outer gates, where molten rivers now poured across the plaza like veins bursting open. The city screamed, not in sound but in memory, as every wall and shadow burned with the ghosts of a civilization that refused to die quietly. As they fled through the flames, Lyra glanced back once. The city of Elon Prime, heart of a god that had once been human, burned again, just as it had at the dawn of the fall. And this time, it burned for them. Chapter 9, Heart of the Spire. The tremors grew stronger with every step they took. The deeper they ran, the louder the sound of the world's pulse became, a low, thunderous rhythm that rattled the metal veins along the walls. The floor beneath their boots no longer felt solid. It was warm, pliant, almost alive. They were returning to the Mythril heart. But the heart they had left behind was no longer the same. The corridors pulsed with red light instead of blue now. Where once there was symmetry, there was chaos, walls twisting into jagged spirals, veins of molten mithril leaking from open wounds in the structure. The spire below had turned against itself, tearing its own flesh apart. Grath gritted his teeth as the ground shuddered again. "Feels like the earth's got a fever," he muttered. Orin adjusted the dial on his wrist device, the needle flickering wildly. "No fever does this, friend," he said. "The entire flow of mithril energy is inverted. It's pumping backward, straight into the core." Ronan glanced at Lyra. Her eyes glowed faintly with that same red hue that burned through the tunnels. "You're feeling it, aren't you?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "It's calling," she whispered. "It wants me to come back." "It's controlling you?" Orin asked sharply. "No," she said. "It's pleading. It doesn't understand what it's doing. The heart's trying to heal itself, but everything it touches burns." The path split ahead, one tunnel descending in a spiral, the other jagged and upward, spewing heat and smoke. Lyra pointed downward without hesitation. "That way," she said. "The core is directly below." The spiral passage wound like the throat of some ancient creature. Every inch of it vibrated with energy, the light pulsing faster with every heartbeat. The air was heavy, metallic, almost choking. As they descended, they began to hear it, a faint hum beneath the thunder, like voices layered in a hymn too vast to comprehend. Grath muttered, "I don't like when the walls sing." Orin frowned, listening. "They're not singing," he said. "They're warning." Ronan raised his sword. "Then we're close," he said. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber so large that its ceiling disappeared into a swirling storm of red and blue light. At its center hovered the Mythril heart, once radiant and beautiful, now fractured and furious. Its crystalline surface split and mended in endless rhythm, each cycle releasing a shockwave that distorted the air. Around it floated massive broken machines, Elon constructs, shattered yet still orbiting like planets around a dying sun. And tethered to the heart by streams of molten mithril stood something new, a form. A shape coalescing from light and matter, humanoid, enormous, its limbs composed of liquid silver and crystal shards. Wings of plasma unfolded from its back, casting the chamber in strobing light. Lyra fell to her knees. "It's manifesting," she whispered. Ronan stared, jaw tight. "Manifesting what?" he demanded. "The heart's will," she said. "It's building itself a body." Orin muttered, "That's not a healing reflex. That's a defense mechanism." The giant's head lifted. 1,000 fractured voices spoke at once. "You took the memory," the voices said. You broke the silence. You must be made whole. The heart had learned to speak through its vessel. Ronan stepped forward, sword drawn. We didn't come to fight you, he said. Then leave, the being replied. The surface will die if we do, Ronan said, anger cracking through his control. The light around the heart intensified, flooding the room with brilliance. Then it was never meant to live, the voices answered. The being raised its arm, a massive limb of radiant mithril, and the chamber exploded into motion. Ronan dove as a beam of energy ripped through the air, incinerating the stone behind him. Grath charged forward, hammer blazing, roaring like thunder. He struck the creature's leg, a blow that could crush a mountain, and was thrown backward like a rag doll, his hammer glowing white-hot from contact. Orin fired 2 canisters that burst in clouds of crackling green energy. The heart's projection hesitated, jittering as if unsure how to process the interference. Now, Ronan shouted. Lyra pressed her shard against the ground. Lines of light spread outward, forming a pattern beneath them, a sigil in the old Aelon script. The chamber responded instantly, the floor vibrating in harmony. The heart still listens to its creators, she cried. We can anchor it. Orin yelled back. Anchor it to what? To me, Lyra said. Ronan turned sharply. No. She ignored him. The shard in her hand merged with the sigil, flooding the chamber with pure white light. The heart's projection faltered, its immense form stuttering like a broken reflection. The voice returned, softer now. You cannot contain us, it said. Lyra's voice cracked. I'm not trying to contain you, she shouted. I'm trying to remember you. For an instant, the chamber froze. The light dimmed. The heart pulsed once, not in anger, but confusion. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. You were meant to heal, she said. You wanted to bring balance. You were never meant to rule. Ronan grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back, but the sigil flared and hurled him away in a shockwave. Lyra rose from the floor, suspended in the air, her hair and cloak drifting in the storm of light. The heart's voice, now a chorus of 1,000, wavered. We only wish to end the pain, it said. And now you are the pain, she shouted. Let go. The giant form reached toward her, not in violence, but in uncertainty. Red bled into white, white bled into red. The entire chamber shimmered as the balance wavered. Then the veins along the walls split open. Molten mithril poured down in torrents, flooding the chamber. Orin shouted something, lost in the roar. Grath waded forward, grabbing Lyra's cloak, trying to pull her down. The heart screamed, a sound that split the world itself. The sigil beneath her shattered. The energy wave threw them all to the floor. When Ronan looked up, the world was fire. He crawled through the wreckage toward Lyra. She lay unconscious near the edge of the pit, her hands still glowing faintly around the shard, or what was left of it. The crystal was cracked, its light fading. The heart loomed above, its giant form flickering violently. The molten energy that had once held it together now poured downward into the pit, leaving trails of burning silver. Orin stumbled forward, blood running down the side of his face. It's destabilizing, he gasped. The whole damn spire's gonna collapse. Grath heaved himself upright, gripping his hammer. Then we make sure it dies clean, he growled. Ronan turned to Lyra, her breathing shallow. She's not going anywhere, he said quietly. Orin grimaced. Then neither are we, he said. Ronan looked up at the heart one last time. You wanted to heal the world, he said through his teeth, then die healing it. He turned to Grath. Strike the conduits. The dwarf grinned fiercely. With pleasure, he said. Grath swung, shattering the nearest mithril vein. Orin hurled his last flux vial into the base of the pit. Ronan drove his blade deep into the ground beside Lyra, forcing every last spark of charge out of his armor's core. The world exploded in light. For one endless moment, they saw it all. The surface, the sky, the mountains, the rivers, every place the Mythril Veins reached, illuminated like the capillaries of a living god. And then the light collapsed inward. The spire below fell silent. When the dust settled, the chamber was dark again. The molten rivers were gone, replaced by cold, cracked stone. The Mythril Veins no longer glowed. Only faint embers remained, pulsing weakly like dying stars. Ronan pushed himself to his feet, coughing. "Orin?" he called. A groan answered from nearby. "Still alive," Orin muttered, not happy about it. Grath was slumped against a boulder, his hammer across his knees. "If this is the afterlife," he grumbled, "it's disappointing." Ronan turned to Lyra. She lay motionless, pale, but breathing. The shard in her hand was gone, absorbed completely. In its place, a faint light flickered beneath her skin, tracing along her veins. He touched her hand. It was warm, alive. But as he leaned closer, he realized something else. The chamber around them had begun to hum again. Not violently, not angrily. Softly, like the first heartbeat of a child. Lyra's lips moved faintly. "The heart remembers," she whispered. Chapter 10. The Light That Remains. For 3 days, there was only silence. The spire below slept. If sleeping was something it could still do. The molten rivers were cold, the veins were dull gray, dust settled where gods had once whispered. The world above, unaware of the war beneath, carried on with its storms and seasons. The ground trembled only once, as if in a sigh. When sound returned, it was the faint scrape of boots on stone. Ronan stirred first. The air tasted metallic, but breathable. His vision cleared slowly, outlines of rubble, broken light, the faint orange flicker of a torch. Grath's voice came low and rough. "You're awake," he said. "Good, I was getting bored." Ronan pushed himself upright, wincing as pain lit up his ribs. "Where's Lyra?" he asked. The dwarf's expression darkened. "She hasn't moved," he said, "but she's still breathing." Ronan's gaze followed the faint light to the far end of the chamber. Lyra lay where the heart had been, the ground beneath her smooth and glass-like, the last remnants of molten mithril hardened around her in a perfect circle. Her hair shimmered faintly, strands glowing where they caught the torchlight. Orin crouched near her, turning one of his damaged flux canisters over in his hands. His voice came quiet. "She's not gone," he said. "Not exactly." Ronan frowned. "What do you mean?" Orin pointed at her arm. Beneath the skin, faint blue veins pulsed softly, in rhythm with the low hum that now filled the chamber. "The heart didn't die," he said. "It moved." Lyra twitched, her lips parting slightly as if whispering something unheard. Grath muttered, "She's got the world's biggest headache, I'd wager." "She became the conduit," Orin said. "The spire's energy, it's flowing through her like she's part of it now." Ronan knelt beside her and brushed the dust from her face. Her skin was warm, too warm, but her breathing was steady, peaceful even. "She saved us," he said quietly. Orin looked up. "She might have saved more than that," he said. They didn't leave immediately. The spire wasn't done with them yet. As they moved through the ruins, faint light returned to the walls, blue this time. Gentle, calm. It didn't pulse in anger or pain anymore. It breathed, slow, steady. "The veins are healing," Orin observed. "Never seen energy behave like this." He ran his hand along a newly settled wall. "It's alive, but balanced," Grath grunted. "You saying the world's fixin' itself?" "Not fixin'," Orin said, remembering. Ronan glanced down at Lyra, who they carried between them on a makeshift stretcher. "If she really is the conduit," he said, "maybe that's what she gave it. Memory." Grath snorted. "Better her than the rest of us," he muttered. The tunnels above the chamber had changed. They weren't collapsing anymore. Instead, smooth pathways had formed, new corridors where there had been broken walls. The spire was rebuilding itself, guided by a faint intelligence that felt almost gentle. Orin ran his fingers over a seamless archway. "Never thought I'd say this," he whispered. "But it's almost like it's grateful." Ronan didn't respond. He couldn't stop staring at the faint glow around Lyra's hand, where the shard once was. They emerged hours later into the open air. Dawn was breaking over the world above, pale gold and violet stretching across the horizon. The mountains near the excavation site were still smoking from where the tremors had cracked them, but the sky was clear for the first time in days. Ronan dropped to one knee, breathing deep the cold wind. "I'd almost forgotten what real air feels like," he said. Grath leaned on his hammer. "Too thin," he grumbled. "Too bright. Don't trust it." Orin laughed softly, a sound edged with relief. "We're alive, dwarf," he said. "Try enjoying it." Lyra stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, catching the light of the sunrise. For a moment, they weren't brown, they were silver blue, like liquid mithril. The glow faded, leaving her human again. Ronan was at her side instantly. "Easy," he said. "Don't move." She blinked, disoriented. "The heart." Orin crouched nearby. "It's gone," he said. "Or sleeping. Maybe both." Lyra sat up slowly, looking out over the ridge. "No," she said softly. "It's awake. Just quiet now. It remembers itself." Ronan helped her to her feet. "And you?" he asked. She smiled faintly, though there was an exhaustion in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "I think it left something behind," she said. "A promise." Orin raised a brow. "A promise?" Lyra looked toward the horizon. The first true light of morning moved across the valley, and for an instant, just an instant, Ronan saw faint lines under the soil. Veins of soft blue light, running beneath rivers and fields like lifeblood. "The world won't die," she whispered. "Not yet." Grath snorted. "That's a start," he said. They made camp near the ridge that overlooked the spire's entrance. No one said much that night. Orin disassembled what was left of his gear, whistling tunelessly under his breath. Grath smoked a heavy pipe and stared at the mountains, muttering quiet prayers to gods who hadn't answered him in years. Ronan kept watch, not because of danger, but because quiet had become something foreign. He looked down at the glow that still pulsed faintly from beneath the earth. He knew it would never truly fade. Lyra sat beside him eventually, wrapped in a blanket, her eyes distant but calm. "Do you think it forgave us?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. "I don't think it ever hated us," he said. She smiled faintly. Maybe that's the same thing. They sat in silence for a while, the wind carrying the faint hum of the world below. Not a song of rage anymore, but something softer. Like breath. Like life. When the sun finally rose again, it caught the metal of Ronan's blade and painted the sky in shades of gold and blue, the same colors that had once filled the veins of the spire. He stood, feeling the warmth of it on his face. "So," he said, "what now?" Lyra's eyes reflected the light. "Now we start remembering," she said. Epilogue: The Mythril Veins. The wind over the highlands carried a strange new scent, rain mixed with metal, ozone, and earth. To most, it meant little, but to those who had walked the depths of the Spire Below, it smelled like memory. Months had passed since the light beneath the world had dimmed. The wounds of the surface were slowly healing. Rivers that had long since run dry now shimmered faintly in the moonlight, reflecting veins of soft blue beneath their depths. The sky was clearer, the air lighter. Even the storm sang differently, tuned now to a gentler rhythm. They called it the reawakening. Across the lands, whispers spread, of miners finding veins of silver that glowed with inner light, of crops growing faster near old ruins, of machines that began humming again after centuries of silence. Priests called it divine mercy. Scholars argued it was science rediscovered. But the truth, the real truth, slept quietly, deep beneath their feet. Ronan stood on the ridge overlooking the valley. Morning sunlight washed across the mountains, breaking through the last fingers of fog. He rested his hand on the hilt of his sword, the blade pitted and worn from battles no one above would ever know. Grath was nearby, hammer resting across his lap, carving runes into a slab of stone. His beard had gone streaked with silver, Whether from age or what they had seen below, no one could say. Oren tinkered with a half-finished device, something between a compass and a heart monitor, its dial flickering with faint blue pulses. He frowned, then smiled faintly. "Still humming," he said. "Guess she's keeping her promise." Ronan looked to him. "And the others?" he asked. Oren gestured toward the cliff's edge. Lyra stood alone, cloak whipping in the wind. Her eyes were closed, her hands resting against the ground as though listening for a heartbeat beneath the stone. Every so often, faint light shimmered beneath her palms, soft threads of mithril energy responding to her touch. "She's been that way all morning," Oren said quietly. "Thinks she can hear it. The spire, Grath snorted. "Long as it stays buried," he said, "she can sing to it all she wants." Ronan said nothing. His gaze lingered on Lyra, the way the morning light haloed her figure, turning the faint silver in her hair into threads of starlight. There was peace in her face now. Not joy, exactly, but acceptance. The kind that comes after surviving something larger than words. He walked to her side, slow and quiet. "It's stronger, isn't it?" he asked. She nodded without opening her eyes. "It's healing itself," she said softly, "the flow's stabilizing." "And you?" he asked. "Are you healing?" A faint smile curved her lips. "I think," she said, "I'm just learning how to listen." She turned to face him, and for the briefest instant, the faintest hum of blue light traced along her skin, a living echo of what once powered the world. "The heart isn't gone, Ronan," she said. "It's dreaming. It knows we're here." "Good," he said softly. "Maybe it'll dream kinder this time." She smiled at that, a small human smile that no god could ever make. That night they camped one last time together. The fire crackled gently. Oren told stories that, for once, didn't end in explosions. Grath snored loud enough to scare off anything braver than myth. And Lyra sat by the flame, sketching something in the dirt, a network of lines, curves, and circles that mirrored the veins of the world below. Ronan leaned closer. "That's the spire?" he asked. "It's us," she said, tapping the design. "The heart, the veins, the surface, all connected. The old world forgot that." "And the new one?" he asked. She looked up at him, eyes catching the firelight. "The new one remembers." When dawn came again, they went their separate ways. Oren returned to the capital, vanishing into guild halls and back alley workshops, armed with sketches no scholar could explain. Grath wandered east, toward the mountains where the old forges slept, muttering about teaching the next generation how to make real weapons again. And Lyra and Ronan, they walked west, following the faint shimmer in the rivers, the quiet pulse beneath the earth. Not to conquer, not to restore, but simply to understand. For the first time in centuries, the world had a heartbeat again. And those who listened closely enough could hear it, steady, patient, alive. Far beneath them, in the deepest dark of the world, the heart of Mythril glowed softly. No longer red with fury or blue with sorrow, but pale gold, like dawn on new snow. Its veins pulsed through the sleeping stone, carrying memory, carrying light. And when it breathed, the sound traveled far and wide, through the rivers, through the roots of the mountains, through the hearts of those who still dared to dream. The world remembered its name. Outro, Sleep Theater Radio. You've been listening to the Mythril Veins, a Sleep Theater Radio story. In the depths beneath the world, the heart sleeps once more, and the quiet hum of Mythril fades into memory. As you drift to the sound of rain and thunder, let your mind wander through the echoes of lost worlds and dream of what still lies waiting beneath the earth. If this story carried you away tonight, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more tales of wonder and imagination to life. Until next time, sleep well, dream deep, and thank you for listening.